Good morning, everybody. Craig DeLeo here. And part of the point of these videos is for you guys to get a feel for where I fall with my beliefs, but it's not necessarily for you guys to basically only believe that I'm going to vote that way. And one of the things I want you to understand is just because that's what I believe does not necessarily mean I'm going to vote that way. And one of the things I feel is a bit of an issue with our political leaders is their ability or their inability to vote some way that opposes their beliefs. And I'm going to use a very specific set and a subject that I don't like talking about. And it's kind of a interesting juxtaposition. And I very much believe, and this is embodied in the preamble of the Constitution in our discussion of the pursuit of liberty. And one of the things I truly believe is your body is your body. I do not get to say what you do with your body, and vice versa. And I don't feel that it's the position of government. And this is my belief that it's not the position of government or anybody else to tell you what you do with your body. And I was in a discussion with one of my associates, one of my friends, about, and a subject I hate talking about, which is the discussion of pro life versus pro choice. Now, they were like, "Well, are you pro life or pro choice?" And my answer is yes. And they're like, no, you can't. That's not the right answer." And I'm like, "Absolutely, yes, it is the right answer because I believe that it's your body, your right. It doesn't matter what the discussion is. Is it LGBTQ plus discussions? Is it abortion? Is it substance use? It's your body, your right. However, my wife is a Catholic. I am born and raised Protestant Christian. So my belief is it is I fondly believe that life begins at conception. However, it is also my belief that it's your body, your choice. And I'm also a medical person. So I believe that there are times when it is very much necessity to end a pregnancy to save a life. However, it is also my belief that it is your body, your right. So guess what? I am absolutely pro-choice. However, I also believe that for me and mine, it's not an option. So, and there are very much times when it's not conducive to continue a pregnancy, even if it's your choice. So it's a, and for me, it's a conflict to say, yes, it's your choice. But I also believe that it's life begins at conception. So it's a conflict for me to be like, it's your right, it's your choice. But again, it's also a conflict for me, the fact that I believe that all life is sacred. I mean, if there's one thing that combat taught me was life is sacred. Trust me, and again, this is one of the burns for me with a lot of these people when they talk about, you know, veterans or, freeloaders, and this hurts me every time I hear it, is the fact of if there's one thing combat and actually being in some of these very dangerous, very I'm trying to not sound triggering for a lot of our veterans. Being in some of these very gruesome combat situations is it taught me that life was sacred. Until you've been in those situations, you learn that life is sacred in all manners. But the problem is it's still your choice, and this is the conflict. So to me, you need to vote. You don't get to. You get to. You have to vote on decisions and on bills that are the what is right for your constituency and what is the right decision for your people, not necessarily always what is your conscience and what is your belief. It's what the belief of your constituency is, not necessarily at the federal level, because again, you're not representing the federal constituency. You are voting your your constituency. If you are representing the state of Georgia, which I will be, I am representing my Georgia constituency. What Georgia believes and what is good for the state of Georgia is not good for the state, may not always be good for the state of New York and the state of California. It is my job to represent Georgia. It is not to represent the national body. And I think this is one of the things we fail to see, and a lot of our elected officials are failing to see, is the fact that you are there to represent the people. And I think for me, one of my burns with MAGA and the loudest voice. You have to be very careful as a political leader and an oath taker is to not represent only the loudest voice. Because in this day and age, it's very easy to latch on to only the loudest voice that's being heard. Because right now, the MAGA group has a very loud voice. But if you sit and you actually listen to everybody, there's lots of other voices that aren't being heard that actually represent a very large cross section of the American people that aren't being heard. And I think this is one of the issues we have right now is the fact that only the louder voices are being heard. When you have a lot of money, guess what? You can afford and you can make your voice very loud, but you can't, as a political leader, only pay attention to the loud voice. You have to listen to the actual voice as it represents the cross section of your constituency. Because guess what? In this day and age, you've got to represent the 95, the 100%, not just the 1% or just the 95%. You've got to make sure that your your constituency, the actual body of the population, is represented evenly. And I can definitely see how this is an issue. But again, it does not mean you have to ignore everybody. And you need to make sure that the cross section of the population is represented fairly. And you need to vote your constituency, not necessarily your belief. If you are part of, you end up being the 1% of the population. You need to stop and you actually need to listen to the entire population and make sure you're representing the totality of the body, not just the loudest voice. Because if there's one thing that sadly social media has made, and our our media has done these days, is only the loudest voices are getting heard. And I think this is a travesty. And this is something that, again, we need to spend a great amount of energy as an oath taker and as our congressional leaders to do, is to make sure we hear the entire constituency. And this is something you need to spend a lot of energy doing. So again, know that you need to make sure you hear the entire body. And again, I love all my shipmates. Hope you all have a great day, and I hope to speak to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.